right, cool. Let's see how this turned out for you guys. You may have noticed the grids that were on the homework. They were actually there to help you. It kind of guides you so that you know, hey, if my answer doesn't fit on the grid that's provided, I probably did it wrong. On number 1, it should have been a quadratic. So I'm just going to start with my basic quadratic. It looks like it shifted to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's shifted down 3. 1, 2, 3. So your final answer should have looked something like this. Check yourself on the grid to make sure that when you're at this point that you went, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, and then over 2, up 4. Okay? You need to check that. That's got to be, that's pretty important. All right, number 2. This one's also a quadratic, and it looks like this quadratic has been reflected down. And it's been reflected down, it's been shifted to the right 2, and then it's been shifted down 2. So the vertex should be at the point 2, -2, and then it's reflected down. So it looks something like this. Now this should be over 1, down 1, so at 3, and then over 2, down 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it actually should have hit the axis. Mine's not steep enough. There we go. All right, cool. So something like that. So just once again, check that slope, okay? All right, number 3, this is where they're a little tricky because it's a dilation. So number 3, it's a parabola again, but a couple things have happened. There's a 2 in the front, which means that instead of, like, this is the normal, where you go over 1, up 1, over 2, up 4. Now, the dilation says a 2. Which means that we multiply our y values by 2. So over 1 up 2, over 2 up 8. So this should be skinnier, okay, quite a bit skinnier. And then you're going to move it to the right 3 and up 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would start somewhere around here and be like super skinny. So if you look at your grid, yeah, your grid might have fooled you because it acts like it's supposed to be over here in quadrant 2, but it's really is supposed to be over here, guys. It really is. Okay, right 3, up 4. All right, cool. Now we go to number 4, and this one does look like it's done pretty well. There's a 1/2 in the front, so it's going to take that parabola that might look like this, and it's going to make it fatter by a lot. Okay, so you're going to have this fat parabola, and then you're going to move it left 4 and up 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. And so it's the super wide parabola. Now, how wide is it? Well, instead of over 1, up 1, you're only going over 1, up 1/2. And instead of over 2, up 4, you're going over 2, up 2, because 2 is half of 4. So you've got to multiply those old y values by 1/2, and that shows you how much to shrink it. All right, let's move on to the next parent, which is absolute value. Okay, so with absolute value, we should have started with the v graph, and it has a slope of 1 usually, okay? Now there's a +1 and a -4. The +1's on the inside, so it's the left one. And then the -4 is going to make it go down 4. So the vertex should now be here. And then the slope hasn't changed, so it's still over 1, up 1 in both directions. So it should look something like that. Number 6. This is the absolute value graph again, the v graph again. There is a 2 on the outside of the function. That's the multiplier. So it's going to be twice as steep now. Okay, so it's going to look something like that. So instead of over 1, up 1, it's over 1, up 2. Over 1, up 2. It should look like that on both sides. And then there's a -1 in parentheses, which means you shift it to the right. So it's going to get confusing. Let me undo my old, there we go. So this is going to move to the right. So it's going to be over 1, up 2 this way now. And then I'll recopy that, something like that. Okay, so it should look steep and shift it over here to the 0.10. Okay, number 7, a new parent. This is now the square root. So it's the square root of x, and then there's a -1. Okay, that -1 is on the outside of the function because it's not underneath the radical. So since it's not under the radical, it's the down. It's like down 1. So it's this graph, but shifted down 1. So it's going to look something like that. Okay? And then the last one, number 8, is also a square root graph, but the +2 is inside of the square root, which means it's the left. So instead of being over here, whoa, that was really too fat. Hold on. Instead of being over here, it's now moved to the left too, just like that. Okay? Now, if you want to know exact points of where it's hitting everything, feel free to get out a graphing calculator to check that. But if you do the same points as what we did in the notes and then just move those points back, you'll be very accurate. Okay? All right, hopefully that went well. You feel free to go back and do domain and range on all of these if you like. When we meet for tutorials, that's definitely what we're going to be doing, is talking about the new domain and the new range.